Um, Angela is as a rock star, and one of the tweets, and I'm paraphrasing, that I've seen of hers that I adore was that she's in this space because she wants to make sure that younger generations, and particularly her daughters, won't have to deal with a lot of the things that have been going on for women and I think other marginalized groups and genders within all spaces. So with that, I am going to hand you all over to the amazing, the brilliant Angela. And I get to actually call her a friend as well, so that makes my life even. Let me share screen.
So I don't know it's always very humbling when you hear introductions because it's like you have to live up to this hype. So I want to say good morning, good afternoon, good evening. And I am so happy to be here and happy that you are here with me today and just honored to have the opportunity to talk to you. I am in this metaverse. I'm sitting on this couch. I'm drinking my coffee. So I want us all to buckle in as I kind of talk through how do you forge kind of your own path in this industry. One of the things that as Berta said, is creating space and focusing on the next generation is not only just my purpose, it's really my responsibility. And so today, as we kind of spend this time together, I'm not going to talk about how you get into the industry. I think that the folks that are attending, you have the fortitude that you will get there. But I want to focus on how you forge your own path in this industry. Although if you have questions about how to get into the gaming industry or things like of that nature, I will be happy to answer those questions. But what I find is not only about how we attract talent, is how do we create the space where people can be successful in this industry. And I'm hoping that by having this conversation that inspires you to forge your path, whether it's in gaming or whatever industry you choose. I'm also humbled to be here today, but I love talking to next gen future powerhouses. And so, again, I think it's my responsibility. And I take it seriously when you're a keynote. And I remember being in the audience and looking at a woman executive and just admiring her and saying, I just want to be powerful like her. Um, and what I've learned over the last 30 years, that what I am drawn to when I see women who have keynotes is just their authenticity and their unwavering commitment to themselves, as well as they really, really understand their purpose. And that took me a while to get to. But what I never saw were their battle scars. And I would only see kind of how they ascended today. So I need to tell you about the journey. My path was not always roses and sunshine. It was tough. It took determination and grit, particularly when you're the only one most of your career. But it also took an unwavering commitment to be true to myself no matter what, even in the face of what I thought was fear. Because what I had to do was honor my superpower, my strengths, my gifts. So the goal is not to discourage you. It is probable that you will get to wherever you want to go in this industry. I have seen the change in the last 5 years of women who are just getting it done in this industry. But by hearing my story, I hope it helps you create yours. And I also hope that some of the lessons that I learned, and I wish someone had told me that when I was starting my career, that it helps you kind of navigate some of those challenges. It gives you the grit and determination that you will need to ascend to whatever you want to do in this industry or outside. So let's go to the next slide. I'm going to start with just the gaming industry in general. So from the latest reports, between 41 and 41% of women are gamers. 26% are employees, and 38% are game developers. So when I look at these stats, what it shows to me is like a lot of us play games, but a lot of us aren't in the industry. And there's less than a third of women that are in gaming. So you are pioneers, and it's really kind of hard for me to say pioneers in 2023. But if we represent less than a third, it's most likely that you're probably going to be one of a few in the rooms in which you occupy. The thing about being a pioneer, though, on the positive side, is that you're a trailblazer and you will forge the path not only for yourself, but for the next folks who are coming behind you. And that's powerful. And I want us to, as I thought about even at Riot Games, that we needed to have more women and people of color and anyone from any marginalized group at the table so that we can develop and create games for that people wanted to play and that we had inclusive practices. And so we need that diversity of thought, of perspective at the table. But when you are one of the only, it means that we have to understand how to forge and navigate that path in a way that allows you to be true to yourself, which is what I hope to do today. On the other side of that, why, as I continue, go to the next slide, Berta, there is so much opportunity. You have an opportunity to make change in the lives of players, build strong communities. I love Gamehers because it allows us to have a space where we can build community. And I think when less than a third of us are in this industry, you need that community. You need diverse voices. One of the biggest thrills I had when we were launching Arcane was just the beautiful diversity that we had. And that came from all of our rioters, just really understanding and being able to have voice to make sure that we were authentic, because what we recognize is that representation matters. People want to see themselves in the things that we do. And you have an opportunity to be influence of good. With 41% of us playing games, I just think we should start building the games that we want to see in the world. And to make change, you have to be in it. And so a lot of things that we did, and I think in this industry, is that we have to be in the game to change the game. And so I encourage us to continue to do that. One of the reasons I joined Riot, I turned the job down, by the way, a couple of times, was that I wanted women, particularly young women, to see me at a level, and the world became bigger than me, so that they knew that it was probable that they could be there too. And you represent that for the industry as well. When people see you, they know what's probable. They know that they can do it too. So I want to make sure that as you go down this path of gaming, which I think there's so much opportunities, that again, you are in this with a level of authenticity and that you are really driving to your purpose. So let's go. First thing I wish someone had told me. I wish someone had told me that I was limitless. As we grow up, there's so many limitations that we place with our words. I'm not qualified enough. I'm not ready. I don't belong. And those voices that are in your head, they're really trying to protect you. They're really trying to say to you, like, hey, I don't want you to get hurt. But they're also limiting, and they stop you before you even get a chance to try. And so through my career, I didn't go for opportunities because I would talk myself out of it before I even got in. And your words have power. And so one of the things I want you to walk away with, and I wish someone had told me, you can do this, that the limitations that you have are the limitations that you place on yourselves. They can be purpose killers. They stop you from getting to your purpose before you even get out the gate. Now, I used to try to knock those voices away. I now embrace them and I talk to them. And so sometimes you might see me in the mirror talking to myself, or my husband might see that and he goes, "What are you talking about?" I'm really talking about how do I embrace the negative parts of my voice that tells me that I can't do something and say, you know what, it's going to be okay. Thank you for trying to protect me, but we're going to move forward anyway. And the times that I did that were the times that I got to the other side. And so don't let the purpose killers, the negative voices that are in your head that are trying to protect you, be the thing that stops you. Thoughts can be purpose killers. So really be directly connected to what that means for you and really talk to yourself and keep going. There's another word that I think is a purpose killer, and I love it. There's this word that I have been feeling for a long time, but I just did not have the way to describe it, and that's imposter syndrome. There's that time that says, I don't think I should be here. They're detrimental to connecting to your authenticity, and it is a purpose killer, and I think it should be eliminated. There was a young woman who came and said, I have imposter syndrome. And I asked her why, what was going on? I don't think I belong. I don't think I fit in. I don't think that I should be here. What I said to her was, you have one currency, and that is you. If you're at the table, be at the table. And I wanted her to shift her thinking. And there might be people who are more qualified. There might be people who have more experience. But the fact that you're there, be at the table, be in the room. I like to shift that thinking from being unapologetic, being an imposter, to unapologetically being me. And what unapologetically me means for me is that I may not have all the answers, but the one thing I get to own is my thought. The one thing I get to contribute, whether people validate this or not, is what I bring to the table. That is my gift. That is my strength. I want us to stop claiming imposter syndrome, recognizing that yes, people will have more experience, but you are uniquely you. You have a thought, you have a contribution. Don't look for validation for it. People may not always hear it, but it is your gift. I see that as my gift to the world. If you get a thought from me, it is a gift, that my currency that I'm giving to make in the effort of making something better. So if we can all shift to not an imposter, because if you're coming as your own authentic self, if you're coming in being very true to yourself, how can you be an imposter? You can only be you. And you should be unapologetic about that, meaning that you're going to grow, you're going to make mistakes, you're going to fall, and that's going to be okay. Because what I am here to tell you after 30 years, that every time I fell and I got back up, it was okay. You don't see it at the time, but it is okay. So we are limitless, and the only limitations that we have are the ones that we place on ourselves. Second thing I wish someone had told me, we move on to the next slide, is don't try to live someone else's story. Everyone has a story, and your mission is to create one that is uniquely you. How many times do you think about, oh, I wish I was like that, or I wish I was like her, or I wish I could be that? And so many times I would like to be someone else, wanting to their type of success, moving how they move and how I thought I should move. But living someone else's story robs you of your purpose that is meant for you. I had a woman once, and she had told me, Angela, I'm just going to put my head down and going to work through. And I was having all kinds of problems at work at a point. And I wish I could be her. I wish I could be that person that could just be passive. I wish I could be that person that could just say yes and agree and disagree and commit. But that wasn't who I was. I'm a disruptor. I'm a challenger. And as hard as that thing was for me, living her life means that I'm not living my own. Wanting to be the attributes of what made her successful was not going to be the attributes that made mine successful. And I didn't know her story, and she didn't know mine. But if I'm trying to be like someone else, if I'm trying to live someone else's life, then I don't get to be the beautiful, creative person that I was meant to be. And through your career, you're still figuring it out. But I think innately, you know who you are. It is just making sure that you are protecting those things that make you who you are and developing those things. And even though you might think the road might be easier for someone else, it is not your story, it is theirs. And so I try to go through my career by being very true to my own story and my own vision and my own purpose, even if someone else's life seems a little bit easier than mine. I think speaking your truth, it is the most powerful tool that we all have. Now, I stole that from Oprah Winfrey, who I wish was my best friend, but it was something that I have on my wall, that I have to speak my own truth. Okay, next thing I wish someone had told me. You know who you are. Protect what makes you special. I was at a retreat and we started talking about, for some reason, how we have, how diamonds and how they are brilliant and they sparkle and they're valuable. They're one of the strongest gems. Most think they're unbreakable. In fact, they're the most fragile of the gems. They can easily ruin, they can be shattered. I believe is that our diamonds are our gifts. I call them my diamonds. And I think that I have to protect the thing that makes me special. I have to protect the thing that drives me to my purpose. And I have to protect the thing that makes me authentically me. And so I think of every gift that I have as a diamond that I have to protect, a diamond that I have to make sure they stay brilliant, that they sparkle, and that they are valuable. And so that means, and I didn't always know, I always had a hint, but I had to know who I was, and I had to be unapologetic about who I was. And even though that meant that sometimes my path felt difficult, I think I walk away with no regrets with that. So know your strengths, and you're still deciding what they are. You're still trying to figure them out. But once you hit it and once you know it, protect it. Because that is the thing. When I think about how my career has, the trajectory of my career, every role I've been in has been me highlighting or me demonstrating the strength that I have, the uniqueness that I have, whether people valued it or not. But it was the things that made my career continue to go to an upward trajectory. So don't let someone tell you who you are. You know who that is. I also used to hear people say to me that perception is reality. And so I had to really think about how I was perceived in an organization. As I got older, what I realized is that perception is an interpretation of reality. And sometimes that interpretation of reality is riddled in bias. And so I spent a lot of time trying to understand the perception and having the conversation about the bias that may be in that perception. But I don't get bogged down that how people perceive me is who I am. And that comes from me knowing who I actually am. And so people might, if someone said to me, Angela, you're unorganized. Yes, that is true because I know who I am. Angela, you're strategic. Yes, because I know who I am and I know the value of that. If you're looking for someone who is super organized, that is not probably going to be me. But what I will do is I will surround myself with people who are super organized, so that it doesn't that my weakness does not take me out. But I want to really highlight the things that make me special. Protect those at all costs. Next lesson. Build coalitions, not competition. I want to say that onlyness is a real thing. I've been the only for so many parts of my career that it is normal for me. So if I'm real honest, if there's another person who looks like me in the room, early in my career, I saw them as competition. And somehow, as flawed as my thinking was, I thought there could only be one. And I guess that's just a victim of me being the only and being the onlyness. The truth is that we have to make room. One of my proudest moments at Riot was seeing more women in the room at the executive level. And when there was a time there was probably three of us in, we made a pact. And so I remember going to one of my colleagues and saying, we're going to be overspoken in this room or dismissed in this room. And if that happens, what I need for you is to let's support each other. So if someone said, hey, Oksana, what was her name? Oksana had an idea. Sorry? Okay. I think there's a little technical difficulty there. And so if Oksana had a thought and no one validated it, I'd be the one, Oksana, that's a good point. So we built this kind of coalition among leaders. And what ended up happening is that the whole room started to do that. Everyone started to validate each other regardless of who they were. And so the flawed thinking is that there could only be one. The reality is, with 50% of women in the workplace, we should be really pushing that there's more of us in the room and embracing that. Next lesson. Fear is inevitable, bravery is necessary. When I hear people describe themselves as fearless, I simply just don't believe them. I also think it's ill-advised. Fear is like a natural thing to try to protect you. If I'm walking down a dark alley, there should be some level of fear. I think what they mean is don't let fear stop you. The work that I do, there are times when I am the only dissenting voice in the room, and I'm always on the other side of popular opinion. And sometimes I would hesitate. Sometimes I wouldn't say a thought because I was afraid of how it might be perceived. But what I realize is that if I'm silent, I'm not being true and change doesn't happen. And if I'm at the table, I'm there for a reason. So staying true is a necessity, or I shouldn't be there. So the next time you have that level of fear, and let me tell you, I probably failed more times than I succeeded, and I think that's okay. I celebrate failure in a way that allows me to learn and grow because you don't learn and grow if you don't fail. And so I embrace it, and I'll talk about my failures and what I've learned through them, but I don't fear them anymore because you will be afraid at times to make that next move. So when I talk to my fear, I'm afraid I'm going to do it anyway if it makes sense. So in this industry that you're going into, there'll be times when you will have fear, fear to give that thought, fear to make that suggestion, fear to have that conversation, that tough conversation that you have to have. In those moments, think about it, and bravery is necessary. It will take courage to be able to do that. And what I will tell you, you will get to the other side. There are times I've had to have very tough conversations, and I have them responsibly, but I get to the other side of it. And it makes me stronger. I'm less fearful the next time. And I have the words to kind of navigate through situations. I think of failure as this beautiful gift that I get to have because I get to learn and grow from it. And so embrace the failures, celebrate the successes, and again, protect who you are. The last thing that I wish someone had said to me is sometimes you just have to let it go. When I've made moves in my career, mostly because I see opportunity to have an impact and have value, that's kind of my motivator. I don't see work as a transaction, but as this kind of fluid relationship. That's the thing that drives me to do what I do. When I feel like it's a drain on my spirit or on my health, and this has happened in my career quite a lot, where I literally found myself feeling smaller, feeling like I don't belong, feeling like somehow if I stay, that I won't get to the next level of my career. Sometimes I have to realize that things don't work out, and that's okay. Because what I think we try to do is convince ourselves and rationalize why we should stay. And in the midst of that, sometimes the rationalization is correct. Sometimes for me, the rationalization was because I didn't want to make a decision to leave. And that had such an impact on me in terms of my mental health, in terms of kind of how I navigated through, how I interacted with people. And I had to realize that sometimes, no fault of each other, things of anyone, sometimes things don't work out and you got to let it go. So staying would no longer honor my gifts. Staying would have broken my diamonds. And sometimes there are reasons and seasons why things don't work out. As any relationship, you just got to let it go. That is probably one of the hardest decisions that I've had to make is what is this what to really honor myself and leave a company. But I will say every opportunity that I've taken after that got me closer to the career goals that I've had. That's set for myself. I talked about again your gifts being diamonds. And again, it required me to stay true to my core and true to my purpose, and not doubt my worth. I think there's a lot of times where I doubted who I was. I doubted if I was valuable. That does not serve me, and it wouldn't serve you as well. It wasn't easy for me. In fact, compromising would have been easier and would have benefited me more. But what I realized is that I wasn't built that way. What I can tell you is that 30 years later, I move with no regrets. And I hope that I've impacted many people. In fact, if one of you takes even a small nugget of what I just talked about, then I fulfilled my purpose. And to me, that makes me powerful. I want to say thank you. I think that's the next slide. And I want to open this up for any questions that you might have, because this is about you.
Wow, 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 wow. Let me bring myself over here to be on this couch. You are so amazing. And I know the chat is blowing up. So let's go and see what is happening over there. I didn't touch anything. I was like, and Murphy's going to join us, so I can't do anything about Murphy barking right now for a whole host of reasons. So let's go. Okay, great. Sheridan is joining us as well, so that we can. I'm going to stop share. We'll definitely share with everyone how to. Oops, I don't know what I just did. Don't even talk to people in the background about me just deleting things. Yeah, so we have some questions in the chat. Sheridan, do you want to pop some? And everyone can put their
first
questions.
off, this was. Oh yes, everyone, please, if you have any questions, to put them in the chat. The chat was blown up mainly just so much support for you. I know it wasn't me. I felt a lot of us did to hear today. Really appreciate it. Like, your words definitely blew me away. And it was so during a great kickoff to this fine morning. Thank you so much for that. That there was a little bit of tech issue. Apparently, spectators were able to see this, but we had people commentating on the slides, so missed out. And if possible, send us a copy of them, and then we can post it inside us, so people go back and look and just enjoy what you say.
Sheridan, you're choppy right now, so I will say what I think I heard you say. If everyone can hear me, it was that one, we would love to get a copy of the slides, if we can. And I do have some questions, so we'll go back to that while Sheridan works out her. Hold on. So how do you deal with? Okay, so question.
We'll just mute.
How do you deal with failure when it is attached to an idea you were passionate or certain of at the beginning?
I'm sorry, you chopped out. What was the question?
Okay. How do you deal with failure
when
it was attached to an idea that you were passionate or certain of at the beginning?
You learn and you go back to the idea. If I believe, and I'll tell you, I get told no more than yes. This one I talk about resilience and moxie. I think if you're passionate about something and you failed, and fails are pictures, like you learned something, go back to it and figure out what you learned and go back to the beginning. If you still are, if you're passionate and you just got it, and there's times when I'm like, I know this is the right thing. I know this is the right way to go, but I just didn't get it quite right. I don't give up on the idea. I figure out another way and I will ask other people. I am a big believer of creating my community and being asked of kind of, how do you think about this? Because the best way to get an answer to a question that I don't know is I ask people, and I'm very good at. I will love to do that. Yeah. So if it's an idea that you think this can work, I just don't have the right thing yet. Build your community, find your experts, find a way to make it work. I think that is the one thing that and that persistence. Some people don't always like that I'm persistent, but if I truly believe in something and I truly believe that this can work, I go back to it. There's so many founders I talk to, you know what, the amount of times they have failed at something and came back to it, you'd be amazed. So don't give up on it. Just figure out a way to make it work. It may be, it's not now. It could be something down the line. I had an idea 5 years ago. It didn't work. I think the technology wasn't prepared. The platform wasn't prepared. I'm now going back to it. So I have I have a whole bunch of ideas that I have. But it surrounds me of getting experts around me that know more than me. And I'm okay with that. Matter of fact, I think I always want people around me that know more than me.
Yeah, I think that's really key. And so we put in the chat, share it is in Japan. We're working it out. The technology is beautiful. Technology is doing what technology does. If I'm choppy, I apologize. So Amy has a question. How much more difficult will getting in the room be as a disabled woman? Really interesting.
That is. I think if any group of any marginalized group, anyone who's underrepresented, it is difficult, but it is done. And no matter what that difference is, there's something that attaches to it. There are stereotypes, there are perceptions, there is discomfort. It is not up to you to make people comfortable, right? It is up to the people in the room and maybe an ally or an advocate to give agency. Sometimes if people can't hear me, I do a really good job of finding my advocates. And there was this Dr. Yable who, she talked about allies and how she hates this word. And I think she calls them co-conspirators or accomplices, which I think is a much powerful word. Like, I don't need anyone to support me. I need someone,
Yeah.
and not even to have sympathy. I need them to have empathy, but I also need them to use their voice in times I can't. And
Exactly.
right? So you got to get people who will use their voice for you and pave that way for you. And I spend a lot of time building relationships with that. You still will suffer from loneliness. I think that once you're in, I think it is our responsibility to pave the way for the next person to come in and the next person to come in and the next person to come in. So being
Yeah.
that first could be a bit tough, but you will get in. You got to create strategies around it and then pave the way for the next person. And don't be afraid. I had a person who said to me that I was hiring too many Black people. And it was a white male. And I'm like, well, does anyone tell you that you hire too many white males? And so I had to be unapologetic about that, right?
Yep. And I love what you said about finding people. I mean, already in the chat, somebody said, I can help you, right? It's about being in these
Yeah,
spaces as well and
yeah,
being someone who wants to help because sometimes it's really hard to even put your question out there, right? Like, because you're putting
it
yourself
is.
in a vulnerable spot. But then, like, I always say, and this is actually from The Alchemist, but the universe will conspire in your favor, meaning that once you do it, like all things will start to work in that way. Okay, another question. How do you know your next direction? I just finished my degree
Mhm.
and I don't know where to take myself.
Oh, I didn't either. So,
You and me both.
I
It's been
didn't.
a road like this, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be linear. It's not going to be linear. I would say, I left Riot, about 6 months ago. I don't know what I'm going to do. Be comfortable, be comfortable. And I'm a person who had to know her next step. Be comfortable in the uncomfortable and try something. Particularly if you're early in your career, I would encourage you to try as many things that you can and you'll find that thing. Like, I didn't say I want to be a diversity officer. That wasn't my path. I was going to be an accountant. um,
Yeah.
and found myself. And so I was an accountant. I'm like, oh, I do not like this. This is not what I want to do. Um, try things out. Like, and I say this as a 58-year-old. Like, I wish I would have tried more things.
Mhm.
And it's okay if the thing doesn't fit.
Yeah.
This is the time to explore and
Mhm.
figure out again, discover what your gifts are, discover what those diamonds are now, and then go toward that. But
Yeah, I
if
love
you feel
that.
passionate about something right now, go for it. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But try something
Yeah.
else and try something else. That would be my advice.
Okay. Next
I thought I'd be a
question.
news anchor too, and I didn't. And again, I remember that limiting belief and like, oh girl, no one will do that for you. Like, you can't do that. I could have been like
Right.
I could have been Oprah
Yes.
Winfrey
You
right
could
now
have
had
been
I just.
Oprah and Oprah's
I
best
could have
friend. Y'all
been
could
Oprah,
have had a
Oprah's
show
best
together. What
friend.
you talk
We
about?
could
But
have,
you still can.
because I said, oh, I don't know if I want to do. I can't do this. No one's going to hire me. I never went down the path.
Right.
Nothing beats a
Hey,
failure
what?
but a try.
And there's, you can change careers. Why not?
You can. You
You said
can.
you don't know what you're going to do yet. Hey, people looking for news anchors out there. Okay, here's
I
the next
know.
question. As a woman of color, how do you differentiate and or navigate systemic barriers, first turndowns from participation within the industry? Do you have advice on knowing when to press forward in the situation, first when or versus when to look or go somewhere else?
That is a very good question. So thank you for asking it. I tend to approach things. I try to take people and excuses away as to why I can't. So there was a time where I didn't get promoted, and I saw a person who got promoted, and I could have focused my time on, the differences of why between the two of us. But I went straight to my boss and said, "Hey, I would like to get promoted. Tell me what I'm missing," and really kind of forge that path of my own. I know that there are barriers going in. I know that there are things that I'm going to have to navigate very differently. And I think that I also know my worth. And so as long as I am feeling valued, as long as my, again, people are going to, it's part of the DEI ecosystem. People are going to tell me no all the time. But as long as I know that I'm having impact, I can keep going. Again, if you get to the point where you have really, for me at least, I have tried every angle. I've rationalized every, because first we go, well, maybe it's not, maybe it's me. And that's the one thing I would say. Do not think it's you.
Right.
Because 9 times out of 10, there are some things you could do differently, right? But don't internalize it where you are the issue, particularly when you're dealing with barriers. It is, how do I navigate around them? Again, I think having agency, having someone who is your advocate helps me. And then sometimes when I felt so small in the room and so defeated, because I think most times I fought to stay. And someone gave me some really good advice, and they said to me, "You're in a relationship with them, but they weren't in a relationship with you." And once I've heard that before. And once I realized that they were invested in me, then it was time reluctantly that I had to go. But this was about valuing my worth and not settling for less than what I thought I deserved.
Wow.
Or is that the 5 minute? That's the 5 minute mark. Okay.
No. That was me thumbs upping my mom to see if she was okay.
Okay.
How do you deal with? Oh no, that was the one we just did. Sorry. What kind of dog is Murphy? Murphy is a Maltipoo, and maybe Murphy will make a screen. I'll bring him into the theater or the lounge later. I really want to push more for indie game equality. This is the question. How do I do that without seeming overbearing when it's really just me being passionate about bringing his ability to bringing this opportunity to majorly overlooked part of the gaming industry?
Sometimes a velvet glove is more powerful than a knockout punch. That's what I would say.
Say more.
Keep your passion, and understand the spots where you can, sometimes I would want to push, and I knew the company wasn't ready. And so I gave them a little thing and a little thing. When we created Senna, that was like my first year at Riot. It was and we were pushing for more diversity. And I remember a leader saying, "Whatever you do not come and talk about these characters in this game." And that was an edict. I was like, what? The first thing I did was figure out how to do that characters. And I didn't do it right away. I didn't go in saying, "You must do this, and here's all the things." It was talking to people who were supportive of what I was trying to do. I didn't focus on the people who didn't want to do it. I focused on my idea on the people who did, because it couldn't be just for me. It had to be from a lot of people. So I would say find allies, find people who believe what you believe in, so that it's not just always coming from you, but it's coming from. So I got really good at saying, "Hey, what do you think about this? Well, you should say something. Let's do something together." And it didn't have to be me all the time. I got to the point where it was more about, is the idea and the passion and getting it through, did it have to come from me? And so sometimes that meant I had to take a step back, stop talking about it for a minute, regather myself. And again, whenever you're trying to drive change, you're going to be told no. You're going to be the disruptor. You're going to be the person that, oh, here Angela comes again. And that's going to be okay. But I also said, okay, if they're not hearing me, maybe they'll hear Verta. Maybe they'll hear Rebecca, and getting those allies around how do I drive that thing forward? Because it was more important to move it than it was for it to be from me. And so be strategic about how you do it. Don't give it up. But sometimes I had to stop for a minute and say, okay, and regroup because people weren't hearing me, and then re-strategize about how I was going to do it. So I never give up. I hear no a lot. And I'll hear like, maybe they're not ready for that now. Maybe it's ahead of its time. Maybe I need to take a step back and think about how I strategically get this done. And sometimes the answer, and that works. And then sometimes people just don't want to hear the new idea.
Right.
And I had to be okay with that too. Like they just don't want to hear it. And then maybe I take my talent someplace else. That could be it too. So.
Yeah. Okay. So one last question. I think it connects a little bit to the one that was just posed, but it's how do you advocate for your own value?
Big one. I shouldn't have to advocate for my own value. I should go to a place that values me. Yes. Because if I have to advocate for my own value and people clearly don't value it, I have a choice to make. I either can be okay. Yeah. And if you're like me, I can't be okay with it. That's my biggest, it's not about money. It's not about, because I feel like money will come. If I don't feel valued, that is a purpose killer. That is a demotivator for me. And it puts me into a shell. So I either have to find value in what I'm doing. Sometimes I will find value in the impact I'm having, and not from a person, but from the impact. So if I don't feel valued by this person, but I know that I have helped 3 people over here, I could be okay with that value. So it's like, where are you placing the value? But if I'm looking for value, a validation or value from one person, and I'm not getting it, then it depends on where that person is in my career. But it's about who I'm assigning. But if it's from an organization, and I don't feel like all of my contributions are being valued, all the things that I'm doing are being valued. If you're like me, then I just stop contributing. And I never want to get to the point where I feel that small. That's when I have to make the decision of, why am I here? Yeah. Why am I staying? How do is there anyone who values what I'm bringing? And if that's the place, do I just go there? Or is this the place for me? And I'm not advocating that you leave every job, but I'm advocating that if you feel when I don't feel valued, I feel smaller. And that's not what my job should be. Job's not anything, everything, but it's also about, I may not be valued by this person, but I can tell you right, I was valued by the people that I impacted. So for me, it was about impact. And I know that those people valued what I did, and that's where I spent my energy versus this one person who always questioned me. I spent my energy elsewhere. So that's what I would say.
Awesome. So this closes us out for the moment. What I would love, because you gave us so many gems, if you could, everyone go to the outdoor theater really fast, including you, Angela, so we could give her all the vibes, y'all. Everyone go to the outdoor theater. We're going to give you all the vibes. So go up to the stage on the outdoor theater. I'll meet you there. You see how to do it on the left-hand side?
I got it. I think I got it.
You a speaker. Oh, someone already did it. Let's give all the vibes to Angela. Thank you so much. I wanted you to be able to see all the love.
Thank you. I'm on LinkedIn, available. Yes. Again, this is my responsibility. So reach out on LinkedIn, reach out on Twitter, DM me if you want to just have conversations. I'd be happy to have that as well. This was like a short one, but yeah.
That's what I was going to also say. How can everyone get to you?
And thank you so much. This was so much fun. Like, this is my first time in the metaverse. So
we're here for all the first. This is really amazing. You were an amazing start to the day. I mean, I have so many notes that I was taking while I was trying to pay attention to the slides. But thank you so much for blessing us with your presence. We're going to take a quick break. So everyone, if you want to find Angela's LinkedIn, if you go into, I believe it's in the side quest, we have have some links to find your LinkedIn, to find other things. Angela, you can stay with us and go into all the different places. People can go take photos in the photo booth, but we'll meet back here at 00 after the hour or on the hour, whatever. I have to say that because we got Central Time, we got Eastern Standard Time, we got Japan, we got every place. So we'll be back here in about 8 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.